he's not doing this way. And you try to ideate. And then what happens is you might think, okay, why don't he use a stick and with a kind of a nail thing, which will kind of allow him to pick the garbage? So it kind of solves the problem, right? So you go and give it to him and say, can you use it for some time? He picks it and then he says the stick broke. Why the stick broke? Because you're using a kind of a too much thin stick. Then you kind of experimented and prototyped again and you gave him a bamboo stick, which is like lighter, a little more stronger. And then he's able to pick. Yes, he's able to pick. So what you did here was you did two iteration and you were able to solve his problem a little bit. You can do another multiple iterations where you can go use a PVC pipe and many other things and try to solve his problem. So ultimately what you're trying to derive as is something like this. We are helping him to do his job little better. So what you did here is we empathized with the user. So another way how I want to put it here is that the problems we are trying to solve doesn't need to be always commercial. It doesn't need to be like large scale where you're trying to build an app for everything. Here, sometimes you can build something which is very noble. And once you give this, and if you can make it in a more sophisticated way, you can ask some of the NGOs to kind of fund to these people so that they can have a better life. So this is, I wanted to kind of reiterate on the things which we covered, which does not require software at this case. Like if you see there is like minimum usage of software if you want to see, but we are solving a problem. We solved a challenge, okay? And then as you see, there can be multiple challenges and those challenges have more opportunities to be solved. Now, this is one problem we saw. The next one, let's go. If you see this picture, I'm very sure that most of you might have seen the middle picture at least in WhatsApp forwards and WhatsApp forwards and Facebook pages. So what we're trying to say here is that there are people who are suffering from weather. And when you try to understand the challenge, there can be other challenges, as I said, poverty, unemployment, and other things. But let's try to solve the smaller problem or the problem which we want to concentrate. So what we see is if the weather situation is drastically changing, these people are having trouble. So in the first one, you can see the person is having an umbrella, which is very hard to hold for him and drive, and it can lead to accident. So that's his problem. In the second picture, you see the middle picture, the fruit seller or the fruit hawker is not able to meet his ends. He's not able to sell his things. And he has to take shelter inside the cart to kind of save himself from the weather. Because at morning when he left, he didn't knew that it might rain. Weather sometimes can be unpredictable. In the third one, you see a regular commuter, not like somebody who's underprivileged, but he's a regular commuter. But something happened, like morning he went to office, by evening he sees there is a kind of a big flood in some underbridge or somewhere, and he has this challenge. So what we're trying to solve here is that, sorry, not solve here, we're trying to find the problem. So the problem is unpredictable weather and people not aware about it. So what we have done for this session is I've tried to take the weather one as the use case for kind of understanding the whole design thinking concept. So if you remember the first step, it was empathize. So what we're trying to do here, if you go, I've tried to, when I say empathize, basically what we're trying to do is we are trying to ask questions, as many questions as possible, that what is the problem we are trying to solve? Like effective weather prediction to help people, and then there will be different people, personas who will be affected by it. And who I'm kind of solving for or making for. So it will be regular commuters, and there will be delivery persons like Swiggy, Zomato, and the courier guys. There will be pedestrians who will be walking. They might slip if there is a slippery terrain. Hawkers, I just saw that. And if there are cab drivers, their business might affect. They will not be able to get more customers. So if you see, the range of people who are affected is enormous. But what we can do is, since we are in a prototyping mode and there is a time constraint, we can look at a few personas, which we have kind of listed here. Now, some of you in the crowd might be thinking, or the audience may be thinking, why this is a problem. People can always check the weather app and the weather website and leave. But the problem is the personas we have, you can see that most of them people are unaware about this weather app. Okay. Second times is ignorance. I think most of us have some weather app or weather widget in our case, but we don't want to use it or we forget it. And third is obviously trust issues. You don't trust it because it says it will rain at 4 p.m. or it will snow at 4 p.m., but nothing happens. So this is some of the common patterns which we saw, and we will try to say that, okay, these are the problems why people are not using it. Why want to make it? Obviously, we want to leave a user with a better experience. He doesn't want to get wet. He doesn't want to get sick. His business should not impact. So those are the things which we want to make it. And how we want to do it? We will be questioning these users. We'll be interviewing. We'll be researching. And we will be researching existing apps also, because why they are not working. Okay. So far, any question? Otherwise, I'll move to the next slide. Okay. So just to reiterate, we are trying to take a case study where the weather is causing a challenge for most of the commuters or most of the common people, and we are trying to see that how we can solve by design thinking. So we are not thinking of what we are trying to do. Uh, we are just trying to find the problem, and we found the problem, that the weather is a problem and why it is a problem, and why the weather apps which are existing are not working. So then what we do is, if you read the picture here, designers don't try to search for a solution until they have determined the real problem. So the first thing, and I'll say I have gone through many articles on design thinking, and everybody stresses on one single thing. Design thinking is about finding the problem. There are multiple ways to solve it, and we will discuss about that, how to solve the problem. But since we are focusing on finding the problem, the first stage is very important, and defining the problem, or you can say framing the problem. So let's kind of understand what are the user needs, what are their problems, what are the insights we can take. Is this a problem? Like some people will say why it is a problem, but yeah, is this a problem? Is this a common problem? Like if everybody gets wet, is a common problem. Is this a common challenge? So when you ask these questions, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create different personas and different users and understand the problem from their perspective. Once you understand and define it, it will be very easy for you to kind of solve it or ideate it. So once you've done that, what you will do, you will get to the next stage, which is, anybody wants to make a guess? Okay. So the next stage will be to ideate. What do we mean by ideate? I think we saw yesterday. Ideate is basically you want to kind of get into ideas. So the one thing about ideas is ideas should not be restricted to one or two. You need to have multiple ideas and from multiple people coming on. Like since you're working with a team here, you need to hear each and everybody. Nobody is kind of less. So when you hear that, okay, this idea, list it down. This idea, list it down. Look for solutions. Look for patterns. Look for potential matches. And then what you call all this, you call it as brainstorming. So when you do all this, what you can do is you will come something like this when you kind of ideated and defined the problem a little bit. So if you see the right side, this is how most of the kind of, I believe other industries might be doing it, but most of the software guys kind of start engaging into planning, where they kind of take to do notes. Sometimes they put it in different colors to show that, okay, this has started, this is completed, that way. And they kind of list the problems and they just put it. And then once you put it, you start bucketizing or categorizing. Okay, this looks similar, this looks similar, this looks like totally vague, this is an outliner, all that. So by doing this session, let's suppose a group of people got together and then they got into the session. What we have done is we got to know that, okay, so user want somebody, when the people are using, they want to see the current weather. They want to get real-time weather information. They don't want to see that, okay, yesterday it would have rained and they want to know it about today. If there is about to be drastic change in, let's suppose 1 hour it's going to rain or there is a hailstorm, they want to be notified about it. So if you see most of the apps which you have right now also, they don't notify you. And in some cases, do you want to get a kind of a good notification saying that, hey, if you're traveling in next 2 hours, why don't you carry an umbrella? There is about to be rain, or don't travel in next 2 hours because there is a hailstorm predicted. If you can avoid it. So what if you get a notification like that? And this thing should be regularly updated. You should don't want stale information to be there. So when you kind of list down all these problems, this is what you're trying to do is you have listed the requirements where you want to start your framing your problem. Okay. Now there are different ways to kind of solve this problem, but what we do is, since we have understood the problem, what we'll go and start making some prototypes. So in this case, since mobile is a very common thing which people have, and even the underprivileged have mobile access, and let's say we'll come back to like how they use it, but most of the people will have mobile. So what let's try to make a mobile app which will kind of try to give you notification, display weather, and give some information. So what you do is you kind of create some what we call in kind of software language. This is called as mockups or wireframes. Basically, what it means is that you're trying to create some sketches. Like if I have to speak in layman's language, these are sketches which you're trying to say. This is my first screen will look like. This is my second screen will look like. Third, fourth. So you're creating. If you, I think most of you must be engineering students. So if you had done the flow chart, this is the flow chart in a kind of a little more visual way. So this is the prototype. You might go back to the user and say that, okay, I have tried to create this. Does it make sense? Okay. So most of the times prototypes are fakes or facade. I think yesterday Dr. Richa was showing there was a camera which looked like a camera, but it was not an actual camera, right? So maybe we're looking at, and similarly in the automobile industry, you will see a kind of a model car first that way. So that's how in the software world, you all is about software, right? So you see some pictures or wireframes and mock-ups. This is how we start with. So go to the user and kind of say that, okay, I have prepared something like this, where you're giving information. You're saying Monday there will be temperature like this, rainy, Tuesday rainy, Wednesday rainy, and all that, cloudy and all that. Okay, and you say, okay, since you don't like data too much, I'm giving you a little bit of this UI as well. What's going to user's reaction will be. So what you have done is you have given your first prototype to the user, and you're kind of expecting the reaction. If I was the user, my reaction would have been this: that what is this? That if I'm kind of a non-engineer, how the hell I'm supposed to understand this JSON data structure which is there? So this the first screen the picture you see, the data, that's kind of a format where we store data which is called JSON or JSON. So they are not able to understand. So that's where, as a developer, you thought, since you as a developer or programmer, since you understand it, doesn't mean that your audience also doesn't understands it. So you have to always create a user friendly way of doing it. So what you do is you go and kind of come back with better designs, and this is something looks more realistic, right? Which is something the user is used to seeing it. So you see some screens, and it will say reminder, and there is a time and all that. So you see that, and this is something which you go back to user, say, does it look okay? And I think he might say, he or she might say, oh, this looks okay, but still I'm not able to visualize this. Can you give me something better? So what you do is you give them something like this, where they have a username, password, they have to sign up. Uh, so if you see here, those pictures are now flowing. It's more like a video. It's like an actual app where he or she can understand and can give you better feedback. So if like you have given him the JSON or those things, he would have not been able to, or he or she would have not been able to give you a better insight. So here, by looking at this part, they will say, okay, yeah, this looks good. Let's make some modifications. I don't like the blue color. Can we add some more subtle colors or give an option to change the color? So we'll come back with all this. So basically, your prototype is ready. And while I'm talking about all prototyping and all that, remember, when we are actually going to implement, there will be a lot many people who will be needed. It's not just the UI mockups or the UX. You'll be needing people who will be kind of doing the data, who will be writing the APIs, or who will be doing the testing from your like developers end. So those other people will be needed. So it's always a team effort. So that's why design thinking or anything in software or other places also requires a lot of collaborative team effort. It's not a one-person job. Now, while design thinking specifically emphasizes always on the user's need and user's demands and understanding why the user may want it, there may be some things which the user may not foresee it. So like, why don't you surprise them? Or that's what we say, discovering unmet needs. How about, okay, you understood that some of the people, they travel very often to like other states or maybe in some cases other countries too. I'm not talking about the hawkers, but the regular commuters. Maybe the hawkers are also traveling by bus here and there. What if we can give an update either on a global level rather than a local level on the city side? We gave them an update on kind of a more of a state and global level. This is something which they did not ask because they kind of were undermined that, okay, they were always going to live in the same city. And as I was saying, what if you sync it with your travel plan? Okay, let's suppose you are going to airport and I think you all use Google Cards. Google sometimes says that it's time to take a taxi, or a flight is about to start at this time, 90 minutes for your movie, like those things. What if you start syncing with your travel plan, saying that, okay, 90 minutes later, you're going to go somewhere, but it looks like it's going to rain. Why don't you start early to kind of meet the traffic needs? So once you start integrating and giving them something unmet needs or kind of surprises, there's always, which we can say as add-ons, it's always going to make them happy. So these are the additional features you might think of, which the user may not be interested in initially, but when you give them, you can always beta test it. So if you see from what we started, we have kind of a way to see final product. I have used the representation images. I hope we all go to London, Paris, and Bariloche sometime soon. But you can see that, say, you have screens where you can see the multiple cities or multiple countries weather updates when you want to. And this is something very basic which we have learned, and you can extend this exercise to anything. So let me just quickly recap. What we did was we Started with empathizing, understanding what are the questions. We defined the problem. Defining the problem is most important step, because if you're defining writing for a weather app and you ended up creating alarm system, that's not going to fly, right? So you don't want to do that. Similarly, then you ideated, you came up with some requirements, then you prototyped it. A prototype means the first initial version. You iterated over it with the user, you made it better. User didn't like it, you made it better. And then you came back and did something nice. You added some more unmet needs or add-ons. And then finally, you gave your final product. So if you see the journey in this case, when we say about iterative, this will give you the better picture. So first we came up with something like this. Obviously, user didn't like it or it was not good. Then we kind of gave him this. Again, some dissatisfaction. This is something which was more of an acceptable version, but finally we ended with this one. So this is what happens typically, I think almost in major all industries on your, like, even with your reading or you're writing a poem or a blog, you come up with an initial draft, you refine it and make it understandable, and you proofread it and make it and give it a kind of a final shape at the end of the day. So this is typically your journey of a software product would look like. Any questions so far? Okay, fine. So now, what I think when we were talking yesterday, Dr. Richa brought about Agile, and Agile is something which is kind of a software management technique which is widely accepted in industry to kind of make this apps or make this software or any kind of software related thing. So while design thinking concentrates on finding the problem, our when you use Agile, what you're looking at is how do you solve this problem. Okay, how do you kind of better organize it? So when you're actually trying to do development, once you understood that this is a problem and this is how my prototype looks like, when you actually go to the development phase and you have to implement it, Agile is one handy tool for doing that. And I think you can use there are other principles as well, lean, and there are some other practices as well. But Agile is something which is very common, and it is also very focused. You kind of iteratively demo your stuff, you kind of meet customer and showcase what you have built to them. So just to cover Agile in 2-3 minutes, what you do is whatever the requirements which we had kind of put it in this to do notes, chits. We formally put them into kind of a tool. There are many tools in the market. We at Microsoft use Azure DevOps. And what we do here is that whatever requirements you had, you put them into bucket them, and you put it as into a product backlog. So you can see they are not exactly matching with the weather thing, but I'm trying to give a gist that you might have 70 to 80 requirements which will have. You may not be able to do 70, 80 at one shot. So what you will do is you will kind of prioritize. You will say, okay, number one first, number two, number three, maybe first 30 requirements I want to focus for this quarter, or the first level of the project which we want to release. And once you do that, Agile believes in kind of small cycles, what we call as sprints. So sprints is basically a 2 week or 3 week cycle where you kind of pick a requirement. Let's suppose there is a team of 5 people working on with 3 developers and 2 testers, and let's suppose one product owner or who's maintaining the product backlog. They will sit together and understand, okay, what are the requirements we want to pick it for this sprint for this 2 week cycle, like starting Monday to next Friday. I want to finish, let's say, the login page. I want to finish the notification page, and I also want to show some charts ready. So 3 people pick 3 requirements, and what they will do is they will daily meet up, and that's what it is called Scrum in kind of Agile world, where you meet up daily. And what you do is kind of discuss updates like, okay, I am working on the login page. Today I created a username and password. And somebody else will tell, okay, I created an API today. And somebody will say, okay, I just started on the database thing. And if they have dependencies like developer A wants to talk to developer B, they can talk in the team and raise concerns. So it is very transparent. There is a lot of transparency in this behavior where you meet. It's typically like your kind of, if you say staff meeting or something, where you're meeting and kind of discussing the updates and also the problems which you may have. And then one of the guys who's called as Scrum Master takes cognizance of what are the problems and kind of delegates to the right people, saying that, okay, why don't you look at this part? So Agiles are very self-functioning. They're very self-responsible, so Agile teams. So we covered backlog. We covered about requirements and the sprint. So typically sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3 will happen every 2 weeks or 3 weeks based on how do you want to set the cadence. And what is expected when you say about iterative here is at the end of sprint, which is like either sprint 1 or sprint 2, you will showcase whatever you have done. It may not be complete product, it may be just a prototype, but you will showcase to the customer saying that, okay, hey, I made this, do you like it, or do you want some refinements on that one? So this is how you, and every 2 weeks you're showing to the customer. You are maybe you started with a notepad, and then you started with a word pad, and then you're finally looking to make something like MS Word. So iteratively kind of giving him something which he can use. Sometimes they can use directly also. Like if you gave them the weather app to start with, just seeing the weather for, let's say, today, you don't have the weekly updates, a weekly forecasting, he might be able to use it, right? He or she might be able to use it. So that's the prototyping you start with. Okay, I think I just wanted to cover a bit of Agile so that you understand how things are done in a software way. Microsoft typically follows Agile culture, and most of the major organizations, software organizations, also follow Agile. And if I'm not wrong, some of the other industries also follow it. So it is more structured way of maintaining your backlog and implementing what we just thought about design thinking, learned about design thinking. Once you found the problem, how you successfully deliver it, Agile is one of the ways to do it. Now, if we are talking about software and design thinking, data science definitely has to role to play into it. And why we need data science? If you see, I was like reiterating a couple of times. One of the basic things which you kind of need, or the most important, not basic, the most important thing is here is to find the problem or frame the problem. And how do you frame the problem? By talking to people, by understanding people, right? But what can happen in this today's world? And let's suppose, let's take this pandemic or other scenarios. Sometimes you may not have physical access to the people or users, right? You might want to interview like 100 people to understand how, but they may not be available. And even if you find them, they may not be geographically uh, geographically spread. So you might be able to talk to 100 people from your town, but you didn't get a perspective from people in, let's suppose, Kashmir or Tamil Nadu, where they are differently located, how the weather extremes there, right? So that's where data science and the modern methodologies in our world software are coming into picture. So what we'll be looking as this solve, we are trying to frame the problem very correctly, and how we can do this, who needs your help, identifying the right user. We can once we've identified the right user, we can focus on our ideation and most important need of people using our product, what they really want to do. So example, if you use Facebook, there are maybe like 100 features in Facebook, but there are 2 or 3 features only which are kind of being regularly used. Okay, so those decisions, how do you do that? You take help of data science tools. And this is specifically we have seen it marketing and advertising industry, because several recent innovations that customize ads and targets receive them using artificial intelligence. So if you are unaware about artificial intelligence, it's the way you can uh, use the user data or the big data to kind of create models and patterns to say that, okay, if the customer A is buying this product or using this product, the customer B might also be interested in. So these are the patterns which you are trying to derive. And this is very easy using, let's suppose, I think you might have all observed when you're running kind of a search for, let's suppose you said, okay, I need a new mobile. Immediately you will see that your Facebook, your Instagram, your Amazon will be filled with all these ads where you want to say that, okay, they are trying to showcase your mobile which you want to buy. How this is happening? When you're Googling it, or when you search any search engine using it, it's storing those cookies. And I think you all know those cookies are being passed to this the e-commerce giants or the social media giants. So that way you will see all the ads, and that's where the data science comes into picture. So right now, when we say empathize, it's not really necessary to go to an actual user. You are the virtual user and you are the indirect user, which is kind of helping them to kind of collect all this data for them and act as users. So what people are trying to do nowadays is that companies, they are trying to eliminate human touch as much as possible. I think I will give you a very common example. Like uh, a few years back, when you had to edit your photo, you might have used a Photoshop, or you might have used a kind of a software mechanism. But here in this case, if you use Instagram or recent mobiles, you can edit your photo at pretty much at a decent stage where it is like acceptable. So that's the human power, where you needed a kind of a guy to do photo editing for you, is now being done for you at like simply at a tap of a button or a scroll of a button. So that's how you do it. I'll spend 5 more minutes on the couple of slides which I want to do. So I just discussed about the power of social media, and when I say about design thinking, how social media is related. by analyzing millions of data points. Like Facebook has developed a system, or Instagram has developed a system which they can understand what are your user patterns, what is the culture you follow, so they can bias you politically, bias your buying pattern. And so based on that, the people can take this data and then create that product. So again, the first step, the empathizing, we may not always need the actual users. It's good to have actual users, but since we have data access to like millions and millions of data points, sometimes this proves as the vital element in terms of the design thinking, and not many people are using it. So the data intelligence is the new input for empathizing in in many cases. And once we do that, what will happen is that now, since many people are rapidly experimenting with these technologies to literally drive a better user experience for their customers and in some cases for the employees. So when we just talked about how teaching can implement design thinking, you can see that not only the employees will be benefited, they'll get more perspective, the students will be benefited, they will be learning design thinking right in their college, how it is implemented. And when they go to industry, they'll be kind of ready to kind of face that. Almost at the last. So what are the takeaways from this session, or I'll say design thinking, or a kind of a word of advice from me, somebody who's working in the software? Strongly encourage you to go back and try to find a real life problem, maybe today, tomorrow, or whenever you have time. Try to find a problem around you and try to see, like the rack picker example or the weather problem. So I was trying to tell you that since I picked very real life problems, very close problem, you don't have to go and find, okay, I have to always start a startup by creating a amazon.com. You might need to create a very simple nobilistic philosophic sorry philanthropic app, or even a concept which can work. Okay. Now once you identify the problem, try to understand and apply the design thinking in that one, or reverse way, use design thinking to find a common problem which you kind of trying to solve. And once you do that, you need to understand what skills you have. Like if you see design thinking, I was trying to tell a few aspects or few personas in terms of the people who are working. So there will be developers who will be understanding coding. There will be UX designers who will be good in designing the UX, kind of nice, pretty HTML mockups and all. And there will be people who understand business. So a lot of times when you're trying to talk to people, you would also need to understand that what your customers think and how to translate to developer. Like not everybody is a great understander. So people like business analyst and product owner play a role here, where they kind of go and understand what is the customer want, and then they translate it back to developers one. So they can go come back and say, okay, they need an API or a screen where they can have a login button, rather than their what users playing them for 40 minutes, they can just convey it into 5 minutes or a kind of a small note. Okay, so yes, understand those skills. Are you a business person? Are you a developer? And if you're a developer, are you a data scientist or a statistical guy who has a subject matter expert? Okay, if you don't have, let's understand what skills you need to learn. Once you identified all this, you try to iterate and improve on it. So thanks to intelligent machines, people will be free to apply design thinking even more broadly. That's how I kind of see in future. Now, since the AI, ML, and data science have like taken good shape in last 4 or 5 years, they had been there for a while, but I think in last 5 years we have seen a tremendous uh, trend in kind of their growing. So there will be more and more people who will be needed to kind of do design thinking in a more intelligent way. So you can try your space in data science and all that. More people will be needed to design and interact, so you can think of yourself as a designer. And lastly, more people will need an understanding of how intelligent system works, so they have the knowledge to create new ideas. So sometimes you can just be facilitated trying to explain that, okay, this is the problem you're trying to solve. So if you don't have the skills, I'll strongly encourage you to go and learn that there are various avenues. So you can use LinkedIn, YouTube, and many other. And you can, if you are kind of looking for a PG program and all that, you can enroll under a structured curriculum too. Okay. So this is kind of I'm trying to give you a big picture of how the world may look like, or world is already looking like, where you have internet devices, you have Alexas, you have Google devices, where they are switching on off fan, closing the gates, opening the curtains for you. Uh, so internet is everywhere and technology is everywhere. So identify your role, fit in yourself, and see how you can use design thinking to kind of fit in this roles. If you're looking, if you're like really interested in design thinking. But remember, when you're trying to do anything, remember this guy. Keep it simple and keep it real. Okay, you don't have to create too many complex screen, because remember, if in the weather app, if I create too many complex scenario, complex notifications, the fruit hawker may not be able to read it. So always understand that you're not solving the problem for one person. You have a wide range of users, so just need to understand how they think. Okay, with this, I'd like to stop here and take any question. And I will say, don't think everybody is using design thinking, everybody is using machine learning. Remember, everybody is you also. So you also need to, if you are interested, you need to learn all the skills too and familiarize yourself and make change the world. Thank you. Thanks for your time and patiently listening to me. I'll stop presenting.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your valuable skills and knowledge. And your presentation was very nice. Beautifully explained the application of design thinking in software also. Matlab, like we are so much fortunate to have you with us.
Thank
Any
you so much,
queries?
ma'am. Yeah.
Any queries from the audience side, please? Any questions, please?
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah. Go ahead, Anurag. Yeah.
Uh, what are the applications of design thinking in Microsoft? Can you tell?
So, okay, so I think design thinking is something anytime when you're trying to create something from scratch and pretty ambiguous, right? So I think couple of very good examples I can give you. Are you aware about Surface tablets? So Surface devices, so they are pretty much like, you can say, iPad or tablets, but they are meant to be useful for designers and bigger people like that. So you can go and Google about, or you can Bing about a Surface tablet. So when they did it, they used this design thinking approach before going to the market. So that what sort of length it should have, shouldn't be too big. Who are the users? Like if kids are using it, how do they kind of will be interacting with it? So that was one use case where they used it. And second, very global acceptance, sorry, globally aware thing is Microsoft Teams, if you're aware, they also use a similar design thinking pattern to come up with refining the app. So earlier it used to be Skype, if you're familiar. Now Microsoft Skype became Teams while they were doing it, or you can say Skype evolved as Teams. That's where they use the design thinking to understand, okay, what are the challenges people are facing and how we can solve them, or we can approach them better that way.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Hello, Akash. This is Dr. Smita Silip, as
Yeah,
one
hello,
of
ma'am.
the
Yeah.
faculty of this thing. It was very, I appreciate your presentation and it was very fruitful. Just a suggestion from your end, like if you want to include or incorporate the concept of design thinking in the first year, right from the first year curriculum, in what way we can start at a very basic level.
So, ma'am, I think I'll. So, you're saying it as a subject or a workshop? I would like to understand the detail.
As a workshop,
As a
definitely as a
workshop,
workshop.
right? So, I think if you saw my takeaway section, I was kind of trying to encourage people to kind of come up with a problem near themselves. And so, I think when you start doing it, I think I'm not an expert to say it, but I can say from whatever experience I have, people should. I think when you're doing a workshop, try to pick a problem. Maybe try not to do in the room, and that's my suggestion. Maybe go out somewhere, or maybe a shopping mall, or that's how I've seen like people at IITs or at the bigger institutes do. They take the students outside and they'll say, okay, we give you 2 hours and start observing whatever you have. Okay, and then come up with what problems you see. So I think one of the TEDx videos I was seeing, what they did was they took out the students to a kind of a grocery market and asked them what are the problems people are facing. So one of the challenges which came up was that when people are coming, they have too many grocery bags in hand, how they can solve that problem. So this is how you can start, and this will also, I think, encourage students to get familiar with their surroundings. So this is one way of doing it. If you're trying to do it in a classroom way, We can always pick up a kind of a software subject, as I picked the weather app thing. Or I think you can look at how we can make an alarming system better, like fire alarm better when there is a fire situation. Those things like that. And since it was on the fly, I'll try to come back with more suggestions, and maybe I'll pass it to Achla and somebody who I'm familiar with, so that you can have a
Yeah, sure.
better.
That would be really great
Yes, yeah,
association. As Achla and team, they've already started in the first year the basic workshops. So we would like to have more inputs on that ground so that we can build this theme in a more concrete way. So
sure, ma'am.
really, thank
So
you.
yes. So one I'll suggestion I'll try to give it to all the students. So I'm associated. I'm a kind of an alumni member of my college. Also, I have a constant interactions with my director and placement officer. One thing I often hear as kind of feedback from them is that students sometimes don't value the initiatives which the faculties or the college staff are doing. Trust me, guys. If I was giving this session outside, I'm not trying to quote, I would have charged heavily for that one, right? So just think about what college is doing for you. Like they got you an IIT professor yesterday. You got somebody like from an industry leader. So always appreciate the efforts and listen to them, because when you go outside, you'll be paying for the same courses. And within college, if you're learning it, it's a great asset. Like 15 years back, I think Achla. Um, uh, we are from almost similar generation, where 2005 we passed out. That time, uh, those things were not that easily available, the project culture or this incubation culture. Like you, most of the people who are right now, you'll be soon starting a startup or looking to work on a company. So if you have the skills beforehand, you can see how much far you can go. So acquire as much as possible, use your time right now to kind of understand all these initiatives. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Akash.
Thanks, ma'am. Yeah. Any more questions apart from design thinking? If you want to check, I'm okay to answer. I
One
guess.
thing, hello, sir. I'm glad to share it with you all that tomorrow is the birth date of Akash, sir. A very happy birthday, sir, in advance.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Happy birthday, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sir, one
Uh,
question from a student, Nishant Roy.
okay. Any source for AI in data science? So, okay, I'll just include a 1 minute kind of a context to that part. I thought of covering it, but I forgot. So there is some echo. 1 second. Okay. So I think most of the people who are kind of in their final semesters, you will be wondering what to do after your college, right? Should I pick data science, or should I pick learn ML, or somebody will be interested in SAP technology? I'm purely talking from a software perspective. Uh, Guys, I think there is an echo. If somebody can mute. Shruti ma'am, can you try to mute yourself? Maybe I think there is an echo from that. Okay. So when you're looking at kind of a specific skills, it's good to acquire skills, which is like, as somebody asked, how to learn data science and AI, which is very good. Uh, but what I'll try to say is that learn all this, but have a broader perspective.
Sir, आप mute हो गए हैं.
I'm sorry, I said a lot in mute. Okay, so what I was trying to tell is that try to learn everything, but don't focus too much on specific skills. It's good to have an understanding, because when tomorrow somebody will hire you, like Google, Facebook, or let's suppose Dell or any other company, they won't hire you for your data science skills, or won't hire you for Python skills. As a fresher, you will be evaluated how good you are in your curriculum. So most of, I think, since you might have been preparing, some of you interviews, they ask basic data structures and software concepts. Like till date, if I have to give interview for Google, Facebook, or Microsoft, they will ask me how do I do sorting and searching. Okay, so they don't ask me how do I know cloud, or do I know Scala or C sharp and all that. They ask me basic concepts. So first of all of you should be very thorough with your C, C++, whatever language you know. Learn it basically. And now to answer the question specifically, if you're looking for AI and data science sources, I think let me just try to find that. Mm, if I'm not wrong, datacamp.com. I think most probably most of the people might be aware. This is something I found very interactive and very easy to kind of go with. So I'll ping the link in the chat once it is done. Datacamp.com, if I'm not wrong. That is something you can use for learning purpose. It's pretty easy and very well built. Okay, I'll try to send the link formally so that you all have access to it. Yeah, any more questions?
Hello, sir. My name is Abhijit Devangan.
Hey, Abhijit. Yeah.
Hi, sir. I'm from mechanical engineering background, so I want to ask that what is the role of digital technology in manufacturing business?
Okay, see, if you see, technology has, IT has surpassed everywhere, right? Like, I'll
Yes.
give you an example. My brother works for Mercedes-Benz. So that's a company, predominantly for what? Cars, right? Mercedes-Benz. But he
Yes.
works in software division. So what he does is, uh, if you, I think, if you're familiar with the new cars like Kia and what is that, MG Hector, right? What they say, a technology built inside. If some of you had the privilege to see, you can start a car from outside, like maybe you're in a restaurant, from 50 meters away, you can start the car. You can start the AC because if the temperature is too hot, you can start the AC 2 minutes before. So what is this? This is technology, right? You are using a sensor and a software combination to start and on off the car and use the technology. When you see the display, the automatic display, that's also a software. Most of the automatic cars have the soft. Let's suppose you take Volvo, for example, Volvo cars, and since you're from mechanical, you might be relating it better. They have the ability to kind of stop at exact moment that way. I think I should have given Tesla example. Tesla is the best example of technology and automobile in mechanical sector. Right? I hope kind of gives you a little flavor of what you asked, right? Or you wanted to ask something differently.
Yes. Yes.
So if you guys don't know about Tesla, go and read about it.
I want to ask.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
Think.
What will be the future? I mean, what should I learn in this field? I mean, I'm from mechanical engineering background, so I don't know much about the coding language. I know about the basics of mechanical engineering right now and some softwares like AutoCAD and analysis softwares and such. So,
So again,
what
this is some. Yeah, go
X
ahead.
skills I need to learn?
What do you want to do first of
Yeah,
all?
is there
So
any?
what do you want to do? What is your goal? You want to do? You want to be in software, or you
Yeah,
want to be in mechanical, or you just want to get a job? So I think this question applies to most
actually,
of
I
the
want to
people.
start.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, I want to start a manufacturing business. I like manufacturing.
Okay.
So
So what I'll
that's
suggest
why.
you is try to join. So if you're on LinkedIn, if you're not, just create an account and try to look for groups. There are meet groups which are happen. So since we are in Bhilai, we may not have advantage of to meeting like those groups. I think once this pandemic settles, try to look for groups. I think meets happen in Pune, cities like Hyderabad, Bangalore. Try to go and meet them, okay, and understand what they're doing. Or maybe since you're already looking at manufacturing industry, you might have some initial like past background. Maybe your family is doing it or your friends are doing it. Try to speak to them. Try to gain an understanding of what you want to do first. Like right now, it's a very broad question that I want to start a manufacturing industry. Like when I gave my first interview back in 2005, when people asked me what do you want to do, I said I want to build a supercomputer. I didn't even know what a supercomputer is. So try to refine your things, and this is where you can use design thinking. So ma'am, one of you, when you're asking uh, that how you can use design thinking, this is again you can use in a workshop to help people to understand what they do want to do with their career. What is their problem they're trying to solve? Are they trying to just get a job? Are they trying to help people, like maybe work for an NGO? Are you trying to be like passionate about drawing or something, and not passionate about cars, so you're looking at a manufacturing industry? So try to isolate your problem, and this is what a dilemma which will always have. Like till now, I always think what I'm going to do for next 2 years. So but the more uh, options you have in your career, It's good and bad both. Good in the sense that okay, you have more options, like means you're more capable, but you have to slowly practicability, start applying practicability to that, saying that okay, this will work for me, this won't work for me. Okay, that way you should look at. I'm sorry if I'm not being very useful here. Like I do not have much idea about the manufacturing industry, but I can tell you that you should start interacting with people who are common interests, so that you understand what exactly you want to do manufacturing. Do you want to make bolts, or you want to make gears, or you want to make just sirens? You have to kind of specify yourself, clarify yourself.
Okay, sir. Thank you. I'll try my best.
Yeah, thank you, Abhijit. Yeah, I think there was a question, ma'am. I'm not sure whether we have time or not. I'm just asking you. There was one question I can take on the
Yes, sir.
chat.
Sir,
Sir,
please.
I have some question.
Yes, Preetham. I think you posted also, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Sir, what about the students who are not from CS branch? Just like I am from civil branch. So what about me for design and thinking?
See, the IT, to be honest, is like a kind of a mother who doesn't discriminate, right? So if you're from any engineering background, I think you can pick up trends. IT is, I'm not trying to glorify IT here, but it is the
Yes, sir.
most consistent job giver across the engineering streams, right? So if I take my batchmates, most of the people are in IT. When you say like from people from engineering, E&E, or you can say there was one more branch. Yeah. So what you have to do, I think I just said some time back, make sure you understand C, C++ programming concepts nicely. Your programming should be clear. Uh, it's not about language. You should be good in C or Python or anything, but you should know how to use a for loop. You should know how to connect to a data. What is data? How does data look like? So learn the core concept. So if I Achla, what I can do is I can share some links later on, so that this help people to kind of make sure that they are in the right path in their learning. So I'll just take some names right now. You can use Geek for Geeks, Lead Code, Scalar is something which is coming. I'm just saying for students. I'll send this links separately. Scala, and there's one more which is very famous for learning. HackerRank. If you guys don't know HackerRank, try to register and solve the challenges. If you have a good HackerRank score, most of the companies will automatically take you. They don't even take an interview. So try to practice this session. So ma'am, I think when you're doing a workshop, maybe if people are interested in software, sometimes you can give them problems from sites like LeetCode or Geek for Geeks. This they have enormous amount of material, and I think people who are from software industry, sorry, computer science and IT, you will see how searching and sorting can be used in multiple different ways, and how you have been kind of learning it in a very kind of native way, but how we can improvise. Okay, that way.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing
Thank you,
your
ma'am.
valuable skills and knowledge.
Thank you,
Thank you.
ma'am. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I now hand over the meet to Professor Kiran Telele, sir. Professor Talele is an associate professor in the Department of Electronics Engineering at Sardar Patel Institute of Technology, Mumbai, with an experience of more than 32 years in academics. Sir has already filed 15 patents and has published more than 60 research papers at various national and international referred conferences and journals. We are pleased to have you, sir. Presently, he is head of the academic relations. Also, he is heading business incubators and IEDC cell at Sardar Patel Institute of Technology. He is also the treasurer member of IEEE Bombay section. So I now take the privilege and request sir to please take over the meet and share his valuable knowledge with us. Sir, please. Sir, आपका mic, your mic, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much for your crisp introduction. Just a minute.
Welcome, sir.
I just want a privilege to share my screen. Okay. Okay. Please confirm when the screen is shared.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yes, sir, visible.
Yeah. Okay, this is in the direction of design thinking. I'm going to focus on invention to innovation, independent of any specific branch of engineering, but it is open for everyone. This is from your college. Happy that I'm sharing the dais to many techie guys. Dr. Richa Gupta has taken this session. Recently, I just was listening to Akash and enjoying the session. Mr. Ajay Ketan, and I think I'm the last one, right? I'll be sharing my presentation to you. I request that you please share with the students. Prototype validation and marketable product development. You know it very well that you have come across this different terminology, and you must have heard about this technology, entrepreneurship, idea, invention, innovation, incubation, IPR. But what do they mean? And most importantly, how to change invention to innovation, project to product, and idea from mind to market. This is the theme of my session today, in the direction of design thinking. So when we talk about design, when we start thinking about the new idea, new concept, we take the help of technology. Just before your session, I was taking the session on for another engineering college student. The student asked me, I don't want to do any business in technology. So my product is technology-based product or nothing. So I just told you that if your business is not on the internet, then your business is out of the business world. And who has said this? Bill Gates has said this. Every business nowadays has to be on the internet. Every business has to be mobile-based or cloud-based or internet-based. So when you are using this technology to support your business is actually technology-driven business. You cannot say that you are not doing business in technology. You may say that you are not selling technology, but it is technology-driven businesses. So whenever we develop any idea, whenever you implement any idea, whenever you give a lot of thought process and convert this into implementable product, or you say prototype, we say it is an invention. Invention happens in the laboratory. Invention is basically a research. The moment you talk about entrepreneurship, moment you talk about the product, moment you talk about the commercialization of your product, startup business, selling it to someone, customer segment, market idea, taxation, everything comes under innovation. So innovation is something which is a marketable. Innovation is something that goes to the market. So this is also where a lot of thought process is required here. Every engineering project should not limit it only to the invention side, technology side. We have to think from entrepreneurial minds, from entrepreneurial side also. So when you become entrepreneurial, it does not mean that you start selling your product. When you become entrepreneurial means you are actually thinking from customer point of view, you are actually thinking from user point of view, and you are actually thinking from business point of view, so that the business happens in a means everybody has a win-win situation. Everybody benefits. It's not only the same vendor benefits, it's not only the customer benefit. Everybody who was involved into that process benefited. So whenever we do any project in the laboratory, it is called invention and it is not called innovation. So we have to start thinking how to make that invention to innovation, in the sense how to make that project to product so that we can take it to the market. That is possible only when you do lot of validation of your idea. Lot of validation is required. You have to think from all the direction. You have to think from customer point of view. Your product, maybe hardware or software, should not fail in any circumstances, or whatever the circumstances you define, whatever the constraint that you define, what are the working conditions you define. In that working condition, your product should not fail. You know it very well that when you take the admission, you enter your marks. So you always expect that the admission process should work properly without any error. When you pay the charges to Google Pay or any phone pay or Paytm, you always expect that money should go to the right hand and money should not be lost. So the product should work in all the cases. If there's a failure of transaction, then your money should come back to you. So that thinking of all direction is actually design thinking. Innovation is an invention paired with a process and a market. So invention is idea implementation. when it goes to the market through the process called entrepreneurship. There is a process, there is a step to be followed. So when we talk about invention, it's idea, opportunity evaluation, implementation, the idea using a simulation software. If it is a software product, some many hardware product also people, they use software first. You are aware about that. MATLAB is one of the software. People use a MATLAB simulation, and there are many simulations. AR/VR simulations also available. So if you are automobile field, then first you develop it on the automobile software, then actually the design of product starts. I'm saying product means not only hardware product, the product could be software product also. So when it's a product, the prototype has to be developed. Prototype is something which implement your idea. Prototype is not something that can be taken to the market. Prototype is not a product. Prototype is the first step in the product development. So once you develop the product, you need to do experimentation because you want to verify that your project, your product will work in all the cases. So you need to define different cases, and that is called experimentation. You have to visualize what will happen if the payment fails, then where the money will go, how the money will come back, and what will happen. So all these things has to be given a thought process while designing the system. But many times it happens that we cannot design all the way entire system at a time. So through experimentation, we discuss, we do the experiment, we check the result. If the results are not proper, then we go back to the design again, and then again we do the experiment, and we continue this till we get appropriate result. And then we take the another case, and then we slowly your product gets evolved. It gets evolved. The actual final version of the product comes out. The initial version may not give the correct answer. We need to do the validation. Validation means what are the input that you give? It should be the valid data. For example, if you give wrong data, then it should not work. So validation of input is required. Validation of parameters is required. Validation of others, the condition that is required. At each and every cases, you need to validate the input parameter. Authentication is required. Validation is required. Your user authentication is required. When you use the credit card, definitely user authentication is required. You have to, the new system has come that OTP has to be entered. You know it very well that on the credit card there is one CVV number. I don't know why the CVV is printed on the credit card. When it is printed on the credit card, it is not a secret code, and they call it as a secret code. It should not be printed on the credit card. It should be kept secret. It should be in your mind. So all lots of validation, user validation, data validation, algorithm validation, input condition validation is required to so that in a wrong cases you will not get the action completed. So if something goes wrong, your final answer should not be completed. The session should not be completed. Session should get terminated. Now many times when you start putting the money and if the network fails, what will happen? The money, if the session fails, then what are the things going to happen? So all this thought process has to be given in the beginning, and then you have to come out with the solution, you have to come out with the system, you have to sit together, go to the drawing board, you have to think about it, the different cases you'll have to think, and then you'll come across many cases that you will not be able to provide the solution. If you cannot provide the solution for the point that you come, that will become your constraint of your system, constraint, limitation. That has to be informed in advance. You have to constantly take the feedback from the customer. You have to show it to the many people, take their views, because when the product is launched, you cannot sell the product which is not completed through validation process, because customer will kill your product. So the feedback has to be taken in the initial. Of course, you can take the feedback from the customer, satisfied customer or not satisfied customer, so that you can improve upon and you can come out with the new version of the product if you feel that customer demands are increasing. So feedback is not only taken to understand whether the product is good or bad, but also understand the mind of the customer. If the customer requirement is changing, then you need to know that that is possible only when you interact with the customer. This is called design thinking. Innovation, when you talk about innovation, then first you have to do is you have to create your intellectual asset. To create intellectual asset, you have to register your patent or copyright. Registration is required. Suppose if you have any technology developed, then you need to register it so that no other person can copy it, no other person can compete with you. If you don't want to, once it is protected, once your invention is protected, you have two options. Either you come up with the hardware or software product and you start your own company or startup company, or you simply commercialize it give the license to someone who is interested to continue. It is possible that the idea developed by you, the project developed by you may not be interested to continue, but industry would be interested to continue. So you can sell this technology through innovation gallery process. Innovation gallery is something that allows the innovators to connect to the industry. We are running one innovation gallery in Mumbai where we connect it to the inventor, to the industry for technology commercialization. So what is the innovation cycle? I'm not talking about invention, innovation. So first we are to the idea stage, then through technology entrepreneurship, you have to develop the product, then you have to develop the process for marketing, process for government process, taxation process. There are so many other processes that is to be followed. Suppose if it is a medical product, then definitely for medical product, you have to take the license from the medical agencies. You cannot directly start selling any medical product. If it's a chemical product, then you have to go to the hazardous process, whether it is free from this safety point of view, safety measures has followed or not, all the compliances has to be followed or not, all those processes has to be required to be done. Taxation, PAN number, all these processes has to be done. So there are different processes involved to convert in the innovation cycle so that you can commercialize your product or you can start your startup company. But if you don't want to do that, then you can simply commercialize your technology to someone who is interested to continue. I want to show you one idea. The students develop this idea. This is the invention. This is a sample example of invention. There is some issue with this, it's not working, but I'll go back the folder where this was the idea the students got it. Just
an average metropolitan housing society is 30 to 35 meters high. About 10,000 liters of water is pumped up from ground level to overhead tank. Considerably high amount of electricity is consumed for this purpose. With the increase in height of buildings, power consumed for pumping is increasing rapidly. Pico hydropower system can be used to regain this energy. Water coming down from overhead tank falls on the turbine. The turbine starts rotating with very high speed. This rotating turbine is used to drive a generator. This is the prototype of our system.
fine. Now this is the idea that student developed it, but this is the prototype system. So this cannot be deployed directly to the
generator.
This cannot be directly deployed, but these are the idea that you get, and then you have to apply design thinking concept to make a foolproof product. So this is only one step, the case one, and the first achievement is done, successfully completed. Now we need to check in all the conditions whether it will work or not, whether the electricity generated will be consumed or not, the battery life cycle is proper or not, battery life is sufficient or not, whether the electricity generated will be sufficient for the staircase light or not, what is the consumption required, what is the life of this, what will happen if it doesn't provide the energy, then in that case what will happen. All these answers has to be given a thought process while developing the product. I'll show you another one.
Guys, stun gun is basically an of mobile phone having stun gun and remote alert system. Stun gun is basically an electroshocking device which produces electric shocks and can be used as a safety device. Stun gun is a non-lethal self-defense weapon. The stun gun circuit is placed in the detachable casing behind the mobile phone. Whenever the stun gun attached with the mobile phone is used, it sends user location to the list of pre-stored numbers. To activate the stun gun circuit, there are two switches mounted on the side walls of the protective casing. They are safety switch and activation switch. When an activation switch is pressed along with safety switch, only at that time the high voltage is produced across the prongs. An alarm sound will be generated and an application in the mobile phone is activated. In the application, the current location of the mobile phone will be sent to a list of pre-stored numbers. The generated voltage is shown using a multimeter. The message received on the mobile phone is shown here. It gives the location link of the cellular phone and followed by the personal message by the user. In our case, the personal message is require help immediately. The location on the map can be obtained by clicking on location link and the actual position of the user can be obtained for further action.
In this mobile stun gun, definitely what is important is the voltage. Now, because this voltage level is applied to the human, then lot of validation is required that it should not be hazardous to anyone. So the compliance has to be followed. Permission from the government agency is required, and they have to validate it. Lot many process has to be checked. It should not generate spike. It should not be. It should not be. It should not damage the operation or your handset also, and it should not blast. It should work in all the temperature condition. So what is the permissible temperature condition? All these thought process has to be given to understand this.
The conventional procedure of personally going to the police station
One
to
more thing.
report about a suspicious person has become time consuming and inconvenient. What if there is a technology that helps you report in no
Let's say you're traveling and you come across one suspicious person. You think that this man or woman, or the particular person is suspicious, but you don't want to go to the police station. So this is the new concept that was developed by the student and it was patented. So this is something, such idea, but all these ideas are only proof of concepts. They need to go through a lot of experimentation. They need to go through validation. They need to go through so many processes which are required to be done. And then only it will become a finished product which can be taken to the market. So all the steps required to take this to the market, that is proper design thinking. So you have to think in all the parameters, all the point of view, customer point of view, technology point of view, government compliance point of view. That is called entrepreneurial mindset, entrepreneurial thinking. So just have a look on this. You'll enjoy
more
this
than
video.
few seconds. That's where our product come time going to the police station to report about a suspicious person has become time consuming and inconvenient. What if there is a technology that helps you report in no more than few seconds? That's limited. We have developed an application called TraceFace as our semester 6 project for Masters in Computer Application Department. This application is an outcome of Professor K.T. Talale's vision and its developers Aditya Naravane and Shivani Nadkarni's efforts. TraceFace is available for any Android-based mobile application. All you need to do is install it on the mobile phone. Here is a demo of how this application works. Consider a situation wherein you come across someone who you think is suspicious. You want to report about him to the police, but before that, you need to be sure about him. To do this, simply start our application either directly through the camera mode or by running the application icon. This opens the application. Your next task is to take the image of the person in concern, or you can select it from the gallery in the mobile phone. Next, you need to select the gender of the person and the category to which he belongs. That's either a child, an adult, or a senior citizen. Now, click on Send Image button to send the image. Internally, this image is sent over to the server where the request is recorded in the log with the IMSI number of the mobile phone, the date, and the timestamp. Every new request received is marked with a received status field. The server performs recognition on the image it received and replies by sending the image of the person it had back to the user's mobile phone. You now need to cross-check if the image sent by the server is indeed of the same person. If it is, you need to click Yes to positively authenticate. Accordingly, the log gets updated to the pending status, which indicates that the further actions have to be taken by the police. TraceFace not only helps the citizen to report, but also helps the police to get the details of the suspect. The log that gets recorded allows you to see the details of the person against whom the reporting was done. These details come from the information registered against him when an FIR was launched for him. At this point, you as a responsible citizen would have reported to the police. What if the match is not found? Here is a demo on what happens in such situation. The user of the application simply gets a message that the information of the person is not available. We are sure that this application, if not approved, but will certainly help in reducing the number of crime cases around. So, remember, a click in time saves crime. Thank you.
Whenever you come across this new idea, first you need to do the opportunity evaluation. Whether is there any opportunity, whether it is worth developing this product or not. You may get some idea, but idea may not be always marketable. Idea may not be always feasible. For example, a time machine, the machine that predicts the future. Can you develop the machine which is 100% efficient and predict the future? You can develop the machine that can predict the future, but efficiency cannot be guaranteed. So you cannot have efficient machine that can predict the future. That means the feasibility point of view, this system will fail. If you develop certain things and if the customer is not satisfied with the result, then the customer will not be happy, and happy customer is definitely bad for the business. The business may become zero. That means we need to develop the opportunity. There is also possibility that you come across some new idea, but the idea is already obsolete. You need not know everything what is happening in the market. You need not know what is actually happening all the corners of the world. So there is a possibility that something that you feel better might have become obsolete and of no use. So you need to understand the novelty part. How to find out novelty? You have to go to the market, you have to go to the Google, you have to Google it, you have to refer the patent that is filed, and you have to actually find out whether the idea is a novel idea or not. And second part is the financial feasibility, technical feasibility, market feasibility. All this feasibility you have to study. When it is market point of view feasible, then only there is a point in developing. If it is technically feasible, then only there is a develop, otherwise it will fail, it will not work. If the financial feasibility is not there, even if your product is very good, but it become very expensive, it will not be, nobody will buy. So feasibility study is very important. The market significance. What is the importance of that particular product in the market? That market survey is required to be done. So opportunity evaluation is required before you start it, before you start designing it. Otherwise, you design the product, you start doing the proof of concept, you find that it has no meaning in the market. There are so many products available in the market. All products people are not buying. It is only developed for no reason. And then once you develop it, you start designing it, you design it, then you come at the experimentation, you do first set of data, you test it. If you are getting good result, good. If you are not getting expected result, then you go back to the design, modify the design, do the same again, and then test it on the simulation software. If you are getting the answer, then you try new set of data, then do the same process again, then you do different experimentation, conditions, different stage. All these things is required validation of your input data. It is in online transmission of data. The amount is also required to be validated. Amount has to be within the permissible range. You cannot have any amount. For example, you cannot have online transmission of more than 2 lakh at a time. So amount input data validation is required. Author validation is required. If you are entering somebody's credit card details, then you need to verify the details by entering the OTP. That is the new methodology started. You have to enter the CVV code. You know that it is called secret code, but it is openly printed on the credit card. I don't know why it is printed. It should not be printed. You have to enter it, and then you have to validate the author. Sometimes you have to enter the birth, your information, and you have to validate it. So validation of user, validation of input data, validation of limited data limit. So the limit is crossed or not. Your amount cannot be negative. There are a lot of validation required to ensure that your design will produce expected result, valid result. So this thought process is required to be developed in the beginning. Let me check whether this is working or not, otherwise I'll skip. I want to skip. Now I'll tell you one example that very interesting design. Prototype validation, when you develop it, focus should be on quality for a prototype validation. Data validation is over, input validation is over, author validation is over, user validation is over. Now prototype validation. In prototype validation, the product validation, the interest is always on quality. Your output has to be accurate. Ideas don't lie in PowerPoint, they live and die in the hands of customer. Building better products through prototype validation is required. This I'll just skip. I want to skip this. I want to take this case study. The student wanted to develop one ECG tracker. I was not surprised when they came across this, when they have discussed with me about ECG tracker, because the product was already existing. There is nothing new in this. I asked them, this product is existing. So what is the novelty in that? They said we can maintain the records, that they can call the doctor. I said, list down the features, compare with the existing product and prove that, yes, there is some novel part into it. There is something that we can attract the customer. There is something which is useful to the customer. So they came up with this new design, and using this MSP Launchpad, it came up with the cost-effective product which is readily available. But the challenges that they were going to face, that the size was very big size, and it was physically not possible to carry this much of size of board on the body for tracking ECG of senior person or any person. So the challenges was to reduce the size. To reduce the size means to reduce the battery of this. Reducing battery size was a big challenge. That means to reduce the battery, we have to reduce the power consumption. If the requirement of power is reduced, then only you can reduce the battery size. You have to reduce the power consumption. So there are many tools and techniques. There are many ideas to reduce the power consumption. So the design has to be modified. And then second problem was the synchronization of the data that was coming up. So through the inputs, you have to sense the ECG. ECG has to be sensed using sensor, and that data that has to be considered in the group of data samples has to be taken and processed further. And that synchronization of data set is becoming crucial, because if you lose the data, there's a possibility that you may lose the information which is very, very important. So synchronization was the issue. There are some refresh rate mismatch was there. Lot of challenges were there. Finally, they solved this problem and they came up with this new design. For that, they have to go through product innovation. They have to go through design invention. They have to go through process innovation. They have to modify their algorithm. They have to change the entire hardware design. They have to do entire modification to get accurate result, product innovation. And finally, they come up with this small size product. So they develop this PCG, double-sided PCG. This one side is the other side. This PCB board they develop, and it is this is enlarged size view. They encapsulate it here, and finally this was the small size product. What are the important features of this? Is it portable? Yes. Small size, lightweight, maintains past records. You can choose the doctor online. Doctor can analyze ECG offline. Then this group presented, they got lots of prizes. First prize 1.5 lakh. Second, they got 5 lakhs. 5 lakh as a product development fund. Again, they got something 1.5 lakh in IoT sponsored by ABB. Again, some recognition. He got more than 5 lakhs extra. So you need to create intellectual asset before you came across with your new design. So how to create intellectual asset? You develop in technology research, then you have to do patent strategy. You have to design a patent. You have to highlight the patent based on your research and based on the future modification. You have to stop the future invention in the particular field. So that you have to make some strategy. At the same time, you have to do business strategy so that your intellectual asset will be created. The technology will be sold only when there is a patented technology and there's a business sense. The business sense can be proved by creating the strategy. So intellectual property, when I say, it involves patent, trademark, and copyright. Copyright for technical document, patent for technological development, and trademark is for the graphical logo that is not required for a project point of view, that is for a company point of view. So let's say one example, the patent for this product, patent will protect the process of making a drink. Industrial design will protect the design shape of this bottle, outlook of the bottle. Trademark will protect the name and logo of this drink, title of this logo. This jingle made for advertisement of this drink, something is written here, textual information that is to be copyrighted so that nobody can copy. When you do this thing, it is called business process. This is called innovation. After the next step is either you go for technology commercialization or you go for startup product development. If you don't want to continue, you can give it to someone who can develop it. I'll just skip this. You know this man. This is the product that he has developed. The name of this scientist is Thomas Alva Edison. He was an American inventor and businessman who has been described as America's greatest inventor. He created with developing many devices in the field such as electric power generation, mass communication, sound recording, motion pictures, and many more. He has filed 2,332 patents worldwide, and most of the patents he has sold it, commercialized it, because he was just developing with the new concept, new ideas, and giving it to someone to manufacture it and sell it. He was a scientist, he was a professor, he was an inventor, so he was interested for developing, inventing the new thing. But unless you patent it, you cannot sell it. Otherwise, somebody will copy it, and you won't be able to do anything. In the United States itself, he has filed 1093 patents, and some patents were duplicated in other countries. You can duplicate the patent in other countries. So how to bring this idea from mind to market? I explained you. You need to do the validation. You need to do the experimentation. You need to take the feedback. You have to redesign it, modify it. Proof of concept you have to make. So many stages you have to go through that, and then you have to come up with the proof of concept. You have to make a business process, that innovation by creating intellectual asset, and then only we can commercialize it. Either you commercialize it or you start your own business. But these are the steps that you need to follow. I club this design thinking in the two parts. One is invention side and second is innovation side. In both the cases, you'll have to make a strategy. Design thinking means making strategy and implementing that strategy. You know this boy, Ritesh Agarwal. Everybody knows him. Oyo. Ritesh started his entrepreneurial journey when he was 17 years old. He launched his first startup in the year 2012. Now the story is known to everybody. He has become millionaire now. Millionaire. Because now he has gone beyond that. He has connected so many hotels, and everybody is proud to write the board on their hotel. They want to tag it that Oyo hotel so that the hotel can sell out their units. All hotel owners are not doing good business. They want a marketing plan. So they have to find out these new ways to market it. Ritesh Agrawal captured this idea and they produced an excellent business proposition for all. So after this, I just want to take the question answer. I just did little bit fast because I wanted to take questions and answers. Over to you.
any queries? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I did little bit fast because I wanted to do the message. That's why at the end of the day, I thought I'll just do the message
Okay,
to
sir.
be useful to the students.
Okay, sir.
Okay, anybody wants to ask me something? Or you want me to repeat everything? Nothing?
My name is
Ah,
Abhijit Devangan.
go ahead.
Yeah. Sir, I have a question about what is the process of applying for patent in India?
It's very, very simple. Okay. You stay in Chhattisgarh, so you have to use the office is Indian Patent Office at Vadala, Mumbai. Because you are not staying in Mumbai, you develop the patent document, send it by speed post to this office. In addition, along with that, the fees for filing the patent. The fees for filing the individual patent is 1750 rupees, 1750 rupees only. If it is submitted by the industry, startup company, then we'll have to pay a little more, say around 4 times more, like 8,000 rupees. Okay. But if you want to get your patent published in 2 months of time, then we'll have to pay 4,500 rupees. So all this information is available on the website. You have to, there's a patent form number 1, 3, 5, and 2. These 4 forms you have to submit. Declaration of your inventor, declaration of your applicant, application number, the title, and then finally the document, technical document. So you have to draw up this patent. When we say patent, what is patent basically? It's a techno-legal document. So that patent has to be drafted properly. Okay. And then you have to submit to the patent office by submitting the document 1 copy only. It has to be signed by all applicant and all inventors. In addition to this, we'll have to do the demand draft in the name of Director of Patents. That is everything is available on the website. Over to you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Is there any way to check if someone idea is unique? No, there is no way. You have to do plagiarism software, but plagiarism software will not check technology point of view. They will use from textual point of view. Text information is compared. Your technology has to be unique, so that only the softwares are available, but they are very expensive. That's why we have to go to the patent attorney. They have license of such software. They don't check only text information, but they also check technology point of view. For example, very importantly, suppose the patent is filed in Japanese language, and the same patent you can file in India in Indian language. So the patent officer will check whether it is duplicated or not, whether it is the same invention repeatedly filed or not. You don't have to worry about it because you cannot check it at your end. You should submit the patent. If the duplicacy is observed, then your patent is rejected, and your patent, if it is by mistake, if it is published, it will be removed from the website without any punishment for you. So you should not think about it. You should simply file the patent. But you should not copy from someone. What can be the best source that you have observed till now for funding of project? First is IEEE. IEEE gives lots of funding for the project. Recently, Rajanambapu Institute of Technology, Sangli, they got $500 funding. $2,000 funding got Pimpri Chinchwad College of Engineering, Pune. Last year, 1.5 lakh was given to Raisoni College of Engineering student. IEEE is one way to get funding. Second is Government of India, Department of Science and Technology. Third is university. University also gives the funding to the student. So there are many ways to get a funding. You need to make a proposal. You need to send a proposal in the right time. Okay.
Thank you, sir. We are delighted to have you with us, sir, and you are always a source of inspiration for us. And your presentation was very clear. In fact, all the faculty members are also inspired by you, and we are very much pleased to have you with us. Thank you very much, sir. So here we come to the end of these sessions and the webinar on design thinking and its application. So on this note, I would request E-Cell Coordinator SSTC, Dr. Achla Jain, Madam, to please give the vote of thanks. Ma'am, please. Ma'am, your mic, please.
Thank you so much, Shruti ma'am. First of all, I want to share something about entrepreneurship cell SSTC. E-Cell SSTC is a student-run non-profit organization which has been established in Sri Shankaracharya Group of Institutions, Bhilai, since 7th of October 2017.